travel ban. President Trump says he now may sign a, quote, brand new order as early as Monday, but he's also leaving the door open to a Supreme Court challenge. The president also promising new security measures coming this week to keep Americans safe from terrorists.
Also ahead this hour, a CNN exclusive. For the first time, U.S. investigators have corroborated some of the details of that dossier compiled by a former British spy. And today, the president hosts Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe at his luxury Florida resort this weekend. Security, trade, high on the agenda of their conversations. But let's get to CNN's White House correspondent, Athena Jones, first of all, in Florida. She has some of the details for us. Good morning, Athena.
Good morning, Christy and Victor. President Trump is waking up at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, where he's going to be spending much of the weekend with Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. We expect the pair to play a round of golf at some point today. This after that bilateral meeting and the lunch and the press conference at the White House yesterday, and then that dinner last night at Mar-a-Lago with the Trumps and the Abes. But it was on the flight on the way here to Florida that the president made some news. He came to the back to visit the press in the press cabin, and I asked him about the immigration ban. Here's some of what he had to say.
You also talk about the unfortunate part is it takes time statutorily, so it takes a little time. We'll win that battle, but we also have a lot of other options, including just filing a brand new order on Monday.
Are you planning to do that? Is that your plan?
Could very well be, but I'd like to keep you, I'd like to surprise you. We need speed for reasons of security, so it could very well be that we do that.
So you heard him there, not committing to issuing this new order, but saying it could come on Monday or Tuesday. Asked what he might change in any new executive order banning travel from certain countries, he said very little. So a very interesting response from the president on the flight down here to Florida. Back to you guys.
All right, Athena, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Tom LoBianco, CNN's political reporter, and Errol Lewis, CNN political commentator and political anchor for Spectrum News. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Errol, let me start with you. A source tells us, CNN, that the administration will not immediately appeal this decision from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Is this a new strategy, or is this a concession? How do you receive this decision?
Well, look, when you lose a case the way the administration did, you don't have a lot of good options. They have an option of going back to the Ninth Circuit and trying with a sort of a larger panel of 11 judges, 10 of them randomly selected, plus the presiding judge, and see if they can get a different outcome. That's not likely to succeed. Or they can run straight to the Supreme Court. There again, their chances of success don't look all that great. So the notion that they could go back to scratch in effect and rewrite an executive order might be their best bet. The problem, of course, is that some of the things that were referred to in the decision that they lost are things that will follow them, and that has to do with the statements that were made on the campaign trail about banning Muslims. The intent, the reality of what this was all about is going to sort of show itself, and they're going to end up in court no matter what. So even a revised executive order will probably land them back in court.
So, Tom, do we know why, if there's going to be a new executive order on Monday or Tuesday sometime this upcoming week, why the administration is not moving forward on that one and then withdrawing the order that was signed on the 27th?
Well, the problem here, and this is what Errol was saying, is that it admits defeat. Implicitly, it admits defeat. And this is a president, a White House, a brand where you can't admit defeat. And, that going back to building on what Errol was saying a little bit there, if you take this to the Supreme Court, if you take it to a 4-4 Supreme Court where it's split, you don't have your nominee on the bench yet. Okay, they're kind of running out the clock here. If you take it there and you lose, that is terrible for them. Absolutely terrible. But the problem and the vice that they're in right now is that you can't go back to your base and say, well, we got this one wrong. We're going to go back and soften it a little bit, because that just sounds terrible for them, especially for a guy who says that he doesn't get anything wrong.
Yeah, the president, Errol, has said that this will happen next week. It will happen rapidly, the word he used. He also says that the country needs speed for security reasons. The complaints that we heard from Republicans in Congress was that the first order wasn't properly vetted. Do we know if this one is getting the attention, the vetting, that the first one did not?
Well, no, we don't know, but it's hard to imagine that you would do the proper kind of outreach. They should be talking to lawyers in the Department of Homeland Security, in the Justice Department, in the Pentagon, in the State Department. They should be trying to figure out what universe of people would be excluded. They should be trying to figure out what the legal response would be, not just from Washington State and Minnesota, but from other states who might want to get into the act. They should be trying to get sort of a political read as well of where Congress stands on all of this. And all of that takes time. You don't do that over the course of a weekend. If they were to try something, I think it would almost be reckless to try and put together something like that without doing all of the proper research needed to make sure that it passes legal muster.
So considering all that we just heard from Errol, Tom, and I'm going to come back to you, is it fair to expect that we're going to see maybe a repeat of what we saw immediately after the signing of the first executive order? I mean, is there any way to avoid the legal confusion and all of the backlash in a potential order that's coming up? Or is this now, people are so entrenched on one side or the other that we're going to see a rush in of filings and litigious actions after what could come next week?
Well, sure. I mean, I think if they try it, then you're going to end up in the same problem here. But again, look, the language the White House has been using about this, when they put senior administration officials talking to us about this, when they say is that, okay, we're looking at our options. They're not slamming any doors shut. This is a 180 from where they were when they rolled this thing out 2 weeks ago. Okay, so it's possible, yeah, they're talking about doing a new order now, sometime maybe in the beginning of the week. Maybe that won't happen. Maybe that timeline gets pushed back. Again, to Errol's, what Errol pointed out here is that, yeah, if you do this and have the same problem again, it's just a disaster. There's a lot of other things on their plate right now. You got Obamacare they're trying to do. You got these town halls they're blowing up across the nation right now. I mean, there's a lot of other things that he needs to be doing if he wants to, have a successful first 100, 200, however many days they're calling it right now. And this becomes a massive distraction and a massive problem.
All right, Tom, Errol, stay with us because there's a lot more to discuss this morning.
There certainly is, Victor. The U.S. National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, for one, is really getting some notice after there are revelations now that he may have discussed sanctions with Russia prior to President Trump taking office. We have what the president is saying about that this morning.
Plus, a CNN exclusive. For the first time, U.S. investigators have corroborated some details of that dossier compiled by a British spy, a former spy. Details are coming up on that.
And Syrian refugees telling CNN they feel targeted again, even after they were able to escape.
Yeah. That is not a joke. And I can tell you that here in Vermont and all over this country, there is a real concern about what's happening in this country over the last month. When you have a president who attacks people in the media who make critical remarks of him, which is what their job is, as providing fake news, when you have a president who attacks a judge who rules against him as a so-called judge, indicting the entire judiciary, clearly we have a president who does not understand what our Constitution is about, what democracy is about, and I think there is a fear in this country of this nation under Trump moving into a more authoritarian mode. Second of all, what I hear in Vermont and around this country is people see this president as a total hypocrite. Somebody who campaigned before the American people saying, I'm a different type of Republican. I'm not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And then he appoints people to those important positions whose whole life work has been about cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. He says, I'm going to take on Wall Street. And then he appoints the head of Goldman Sachs, one of the largest financial institutions in the country, as his right-hand guy, and surrounds himself with billionaires. So I think there is growing consternation in this country. And what you are seeing is people beginning to stand up and fight back. You're seeing at Republican town meetings in Utah, elsewhere. Yep. Hundreds and hundreds of people coming out. And I do want to tell you that on February 25th, 2 weeks from tomorrow, there will be rallies all over this country where Democrats, Republicans, independents are going to go out to Republican offices, congressional offices, and say, you know what? You're not going to throw 20 million people off of health insurance, and you're not going to do away with pre-existing conditions. So I think you're seeing the American people standing up to Trump and fighting back.
There's a lot of things I want to ask you about, but because you bring up those town halls, I want to ask you that now. There's been a lot of anger and protests at these Republican town halls, right? This is all about Obamacare, as you point out. You're talking about another day of action. You had one back in January that you were the leader of. Do you think these protests are going to have any impact, though, on Republicans who will, of course, control this, repeal and replace?
Do I think? I think it has already had a huge impact. You remember, it was just a month or two ago, Republicans said, we're going to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We're going to throw millions off of health insurance. We're going to raise prescription drug costs for seniors. We're going to do away with pre-existing conditions. We're going to do all of that. Repeal, repeal, repeal. Guess what? You're not hearing that so much anymore. And I think when hundreds of thousands of people come out and actually confront Republicans and say, look, you don't like the Affordable Care Act? Fine. We know it has problems. What are your ideas to improve it? How are you going to drive down deductibles? How are you going to provide health insurance for the 28 million people who don't have it? Are you going to make sure that people who have pre-existing conditions still are going to be able to get insurance at a rate that they can afford? Are you going to throw young people off their parents' insurance? Are you going to raise prescription drug costs by $2,000 for senior citizens? Those are the questions Republicans are going to hear. And you know what? I don't think you're going to see them going forward with the repeal of the ACA.
So what do you think they're going to do? I mean, they're not going to let it stay as it is.
No, they're not. But I think they're going to have to address the fact that we need to make it better, not just throw it out. People are saying, you're crazy. You just can't throw out something without replacing it with something that is good or better. But I think that is the message that the Republicans are getting, and they are hearing it very clearly.
It's interesting that you have all of this action around Obamacare right now and a lot of protests about that, but also a lot of questions about where the Democratic Party is going. Obviously, you're an independent, but this is an issue that is near and dear to Democrats' hearts. We are hearing now, sources just tonight telling us, and I don't think you've heard this, that during a meeting with senators at the White House, President Trump said that Elizabeth Warren is now the face of the Democratic Party, but that's not how he said it. The way he said it is, Pocahontas is now the face of your party. What's your reaction to that?
Well, again, I mean, it's, what can you say? I keep saying it's unbelievable. I mean, he's using incredibly insulting words. Elizabeth Warren, to my view, is one of the outstanding members of the United States Senate. I understand why Trump may not like her, because she has stood up to Wall Street and stood up to the billionaire class. So I think that, in fact, in my view, we need basic transformation of the Democratic Party to make it a party of working people, to make it a party that is very clear. We are going to stand up to Wall Street. We're going to stand up to the drug companies and the insurance companies, and we are going to bring about the kinds of changes that this country needs to protect the middle class and working families.
Why do you think, though, that he always attacks her, right? He's not attacking you. Why is he attacking her? Is it because she's a woman, or why? Why?
You know what, Aaron, I really, trying to understand the way this president functions is something that I can't quite figure out myself, and I'm not sure that many people can.
It does bring me, though, to a serious issue, though, of course, which is mental health, right? In recent days, several Democrats have questioned his mental health. Nancy Pelosi said he should get a mental health check. She suggested that. You yourself have used the word delusional to describe him. Look, I know how you feel about him, but do you think that this talk is disrespectful of the office of the president?
You know, that is a fair question. And if you know my personal record, you know I am maybe the most progressive member of the United States Congress. But that doesn't allow me, and I never have, just attack people because their views are different than mine. You got a lot of Republicans out there, conservative, they're decent, honest people. I disagree with them. I use the term delusional in Trump with regard to Trump when he said there were 3 to 5 million illegals who voted in the last election. Aaron, that is delusional. Nobody in the world believes that is the case. There is zero evidence to back it up. But he makes that statement. So I think the word delusional is correct. I have used the word pathological liar to describe Donald Trump. Those are very harsh terms. I don't feel good about it. I disagreed with George Bush all the time. Never called him a pathological liar because he was not, just a conservative president. But this guy lies all of the time. So we are in kind of a new era. And I know the media is figuring out how it could deal with it. Democrats are figuring out how we could deal with it. And by the way, you got some Republicans who are not all that enthusiastic about the way that this president is behaving. But bottom line here is I think the American people, working people, middle-class people, are understanding that this guy is not delivering what he promised. How can you go around saying you will not cut Social Security and then you appoint to be head of HHS a guy whose whole life's work has been about cutting Medicare, cutting Social Security? The hypocrisy is unbelievable.
Right. Although he hasn't done it yet, and he has, I mean, one could argue he's keeping absolutely all of his campaign promises, right, Senator, including the travel ban, which I want to get your new view on the breaking news tonight, because he's now saying he may issue a new executive order. He says this is about security. He doesn't have the time to fight through the courts, possibly, with the one that was, of course, the issue with the Ninth Circuit Court last night. We asked him tonight on the plane to Mar-a-Lago what would be in the new executive order, and here's exactly how he answered that question.
We're going to have very, very strong vetting. I call it extreme vetting, and we're going to have very strong security in our country. We are going to have people come into our country that want to be here for good reasons.
Is there an executive order on this issue, Senator, that you could get behind? Because we all know there are major security risks. There are people outside the United States who do want to come here to do Americans harm. Is there an executive order on this front that he could rework that you could support?
Look, Aaron, what the president just said is what everybody agrees with. Who wants to create a situation where people are going to come into this country to do us harm? There already is very, very strong vetting. If the president has an idea on how you make that vetting even stronger and may keep us safer, that's fine. Who disagrees with that? But this is what I will tell you, and it's not just me. These are national security experts who say that Trump's words and his deeds are making us less safe, because he is feeding ammunition to the jihadists, to the people who hate America. And he's going out and all over the world. You know, the jihadists are telling young people, see that? They really do hate us. That's what we've been telling you all along. They are anti-Muslim. Stand up, fight Americans. So I think, and I think many national security experts would agree with me, that we are becoming less safe because of this anti-Muslim rhetoric and actions.
All right, Senator Sanders, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
And out front next, Melania Trump, her first trip aboard Air Force One this afternoon, and getting ready to host the Japanese Prime Minister and his wife at Mar-a-Lago tonight for a dinner. And Kellyanne Conway, she says Trump supports her 100%. Well, we have some new reporting